Hello everyone and welcome to 0 to 5K challenge week 4, which means we are at the midpoint of the challenge. I don't want to rejoice too much. Getting to the half point is good, but it's probably the easier half of it, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, Monday, I knew it was going to be rough. The week before it ended up not great. And I also had a bad night. I woke up because of a headache quite early. So I knew I had to put all the chances on my side. I had 2 strategies for that. The first one, I ditched the German podcast. I think I need to be reasonable and not ask too much of myself and my brain. Instead, I opted for some heavy duty, borderline corny music, you know, in the vein of Scooter, oomph, oomph, oomph. It's music that makes me want to bounce. And when you think about it, what is running but bouncing forward? The second strategy is to leverage my love for organization and optimization. I decided to merge my 0 to 5K challenge with the Inner Peace challenge. The plan, very simple. I would run, stretch, sit in nature, and do a meditative walk on the way back. It's a 5-in-1. Who can resist that? It did work, even though when the app started and it announced the intervals, it was a lot more than the week before. So far, the intervals got 30 seconds to a minute longer each time. Here we jumped to a minute or minute and a half longer. So it's a good thing I had some music to help me along the way. Looking at the metrics, there is a very clear correlation between poor sleep or short sleep and the resting heart rate that sort of spikes the day after a bad night. And looking at the metrics again, it's usually going well. I'll go into details for most of them, but the sleep metrics are not that good. They're kind of all over the place. So I'm thinking maybe my next challenge should be a sleep better challenge. I'm putting that with my list of possible challenges. I need to think about it. Something that is interesting from the data point of view, looking at the runs, they are longer, distance, time, there's more running. The proportion of running and walking has shifted, clearly shifted. But looking at my data, let me see. Yeah, my heart rate stays in the range of 118 to 132, even though the effort is greater, which would indicate that I'm adapting and I can produce more effort without stressing my heart. So I'm quite happy about that. Wednesday was the second run and I could not implement my super 5-in-1 plan because it was raining, drizzling, and it was a bit windy, and I figured that sitting in nature for 5 minutes all sweaty from the run was a bad idea. I didn't want to catch a cold, so I actually stretched at home. But during the run, I invented a brand new game. It's called Guess the Interval. At the beginning of the run, the apps tell me, today you're doing 4 intervals of 3 and 5 minutes. And so I start running during the first interval and I think, oh, this has got to be the 5-minute interval. It wasn't. Later on, I'm running, I'll go, okay, for sure, this is the 5-minute interval. And I went from that to, I think the app is bugged or the timer is stuck because it's definitely been more than 5 minutes. Obviously, I was wrong again. At the end of the race, I looked, the intervals were 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and then 3 minutes. So now that I kind of see the pattern, my game is sort of ruined, but it kept me entertained on Wednesday. Friday also had a first. Not a new game, sadly. I had my first side cramp. It wasn't very serious, it was not crippling or anything, but my plan during the weekend is to do a little bit of research, like why they happen, what is recommended if they happen. I don't know. It wasn't so bad, so I kept on going, but if it got worse, do I stop, breathe, lie down, sit? I have no idea. So I'll do the research this weekend, and I will definitely update the booklet also, so that anyone who wants to follow the booklet doesn't have to do the research as well. Looking at a broader picture, when I started this challenge, I wondered if there would be a point where something clicked and I would start enjoying running. I already knew that it wouldn't be in week 1 and 2 because I had already got that far in my previous attempts. And now, after 4 weeks, I can tell you it's not happening then either. Now, it's quite interesting because my subjective experience tells me that I'm not particularly doing better, but looking at the data, particularly the VO2 max, it went from 27.3 to 29.6, which is good, though this week I completely plateaued. It was the same throughout the whole week. Is that a sort of a bottleneck, plateau? How long will it last? Is that it? I don't know. But it would seem that I'm doing quite well compared with the expected metrics. There's something else that I've been thinking about. When I play Beat Saber, which is essentially the only form of exercise I ever do besides maybe walking in the morning, but I noticed that when I play maybe at around the 15-minute mark, that's when it gets difficult and I could really stop. But if you push through, you have that second wind. I have not reached the second wind. I think I'm getting to the point where it's getting harder. The fourth interval in the last run really cost me, and it's a good thing it was only the 3-minute one. Now, I don't know if the fact that I'm doing these intervals sort of postpones or maybe even cancels that second wind effect. So that's another thing that I will be paying attention to starting next week. So the overall takeaway for week 4 is that let me pull up the numbers. There we go. My resting heart rate went from week 1 to 70-74. Week 4, it's more like 64-72. So it is typically a bit lower, which would indicate. Out of curiosity, I put the numbers for week 1 and week 4 so I could compare them for you. Looking at my resting HR, at week 1, I was between 70 and 74. Week 4, 64 to 72. So typically it's lower, which would indicate improved efficiency. The running HR, even though obviously I'm doing intervals, so it's not like I'm running throughout, but I'm running more and more. I went from week 1, 132 as a peak, and week 4, between 118 and 130, which would indicate that it's more stable, even though the sessions are getting harder. Good news. VO2 max, I already mentioned that. It improved a lot and very quickly, but it's plateaued the whole week. We started running. The distance is actually not much more, even though, as I said before, the proportion of the time spent running and the time spent walking has shifted in favor of the running. The calories burned, yes, I was tracking that. Interestingly, with the calories, the app tells me the calories, and that's what I wrote down in my journal. But then looking at the data from my watch, they tell me something different. I didn't really bother noting the calorie count from both apps because it's not really why I'm here. And then we're down to sleep. My sleep duration was between 6 hours and 8 hours and a half in week 1. Week 2, 5 hours and 7 hours. Again, there's other things happening, there's life. However, clearly when I sleep badly, it's harder to run the next day, and the resting heartbeat is worse as well. The last bit of data is sleep duration is anywhere. Week 1, we had 6 hours to 8 hours and a half. Week 4, 5 hours to 7 hours. It's a bit of a mess. Sleep quality, both weeks range between 60 and 80%. So it's really inconsistent. Sleep better challenge. I think that's what I need. Week 5 is going to be interesting. It's brand new territory for me. I did have a sneak peek at the runs, and it's a mixture of increasing the time we run, decreasing the time I walk, and also reducing the number of intervals. Let's see how it goes.